On screen share. And thanks for taking time out of your evening to come and be with us tonight. Okay. And welcome to our general meeting. Couple of things just for all of us to get synced up as we're starting off. One, as we're going through the evening, if there's at any point you would like to take the floor, share something, participate in some way, please raise your hand by selecting the raise hand feature. It's found down in the bottom of your screen under the reactions. And then I will call on people in the order in which they raise their hand. If we need to do a quick poll, we might use a reaction to do a quick vote. If that happens, I'll review how to do that using all the little buttons at the end of Zoom. I know that can sometimes be a little confusing. We'll have chat open for the bulk of our conversations today, except when we get to resolutions. When we get to resolutions, chat will be closed, as it is whenever we're engaging in a conversation about something that we're going to be voting on. And hello out to everyone on YouTube who might be watching us as we're doing this through a live stream. Quick review of our meeting norms. Our first is to treat each other with dignity and respect. The second is, if you don't know, ask. Again, you can throw questions into the chat, or you can use the raise hand feature, and we'll do our best to get to those questions as quickly as we can. The third is step up and step back. So just be aware of how much space you're taking up, especially when we're having conversations around things like resolutions. Our goal is to hear from a variety of different speakers, but still make space for everyone to feel like they were able to share their perspective. Fourth, please remember everyone here is a volunteer, and we're doing the best we can. We're always open to feedback on how we can improve that. And then fifth, together we all share the responsibility of staying on time. I know we have a proud tradition of ending our meetings on time, and so we will do our best to do that this evening. We function all of our meetings through Robert's Rules of Order, and so there are a set of procedures that we use to run things. They're here to help us. They're here to help make sure that we have a structure in how we engage in our conversations, but they can also sometimes be a little tricky. And so if you don't know the details, that is totally okay. If you'd like to contribute, again, just raise your hand and we'll help you say the specific things that you need to say in order to participate. Most of them are going to start with something like, I move that we do this thing. And again, if we need to slow down to explain anything, that is what we're here to do. For example, when we get to our resolutions, we'll pause and we'll review how Robert's rules work for the resolutions so that everyone can understand how we're going to be engaging with each other. And if you are a parliamentary rock star and you know Robert's rules really well, please use your powers for good and to help us move things forward. A couple of common Robert's rules that might be helpful for all of you as we're going through the meeting. One is a point of order, and we use this whenever someone thinks we're not following the rules. For example, if we didn't get a second before we moved on something, then you can interrupt and say, point of order, I think we need to do this in this specific order. A point of information is used when you need to ask a question that's relevant to a topic we're discussing. Oftentimes we'll just have the opportunity when we're discussing something, but if you need to ask a specific question, as long as it's related to what we're discussing, you can do a point of information. And then finally, a point of privilege is used if you need some adjustments so that you can participate. For example, if you can't hear someone, or you're not able to access something, or you need some more time to finish your vote, then a point of privilege can be used to make sure that you are getting the support that you need so that you can fully participate in the meeting. And then, of course, we want to always start all of our meetings with a land acknowledgement. And so although we're all joining virtually tonight, we'd like to start this event acknowledging that we're on the traditional lands of the first people of Seattle, the Duwamish people past and present, and honor with gratitude the land itself and the Duwamish tribe. The 43rd pays real rent to the Duwamish tribe. And if you'd like to learn more about whose lands you occupy and have occupied, you can go to native-land.ca. Stop my share there. Get out of these slides. Okay, next up we have credentialing. And so I believe Liam is going to throw that link into the chat. And so this is our way of checking in for the meeting. And so using that voting code that you all received, there's a link right there, and you can use that to sign into the meeting. So go to the first forms link, copy and paste that meeting code out of the email that you received, throw it in there, and you can use that to check in. If you have any questions or any issues in finding your voting code, again, please email tally@43rddems.org, and we can help you in making sure that you get your voting code. We're going to give everyone just a couple of seconds to go and get credentialed in and make sure that we've got a quorum so we can move forward with some of our additional to the agenda. Okay. So thank you everyone for getting those credentials in, checking in with our tech chair. Oh, so Anne, instead of putting your code into the chat, you got to click on that, the link. It'll say it's the first link in that message that Liam just put in there. It'll open up a little Google form and you can throw it in there. And here I can do a quick screen share to help everyone see what this looks like. Okay, so you should open it up. It'll show this form right here. You'll enter your voting code right here, and then just mark that you are present. Okay, so checking in with our tech chair. Tech chair, do we have quorum for the meeting?
We do not yet.
Not yet. Okay. So we will hold off on just a little bit and come back once we get that for our approval of agenda and approval of the minutes. So I'll just share a little bit before, and then we'll come back and check when we've got that quorum. So going into our chair report, first, hi everyone. My name is Ryan Driscoll. I use he, him pronouns. If you weren't a part of the reorg meeting, you might be wondering who I am. I am your new chair for the 43rd, here with many of our new board members. And in just a little bit, I'm going to give them all an opportunity to do some quick introductions for themselves. But first, I wanted to thank everyone for their participation in the reorg last month. We're modeling what democracy looks like on the small scale, and I'm truly honored to help guide the 43rd with all of the other amazing members of our e-board. I also wanted to start our meeting by recognizing that this past month has been a challenge, and it's the start of a challenging next few years, and I have no doubts that everyone has been impacted in different ways, and that many people in your lives are feeling the fear, anxiety, loss, rage, and myriad of other emotions, in addition to the loss of jobs, resources, access to healthcare, and other impacts. And I just want to, make sure that we all recognize that those reactions are valid and they're real, and sometimes they can be overwhelming. And it's in times like these that we need community more than ever, a community where people can process what's going on and organize to push back on the national level and to push forward on the local level. And a community where people can see themselves represented, where people see Democrats stepping up to fight for their rights, their protection, and their interests. A community that recognizes that our current system doesn't work for the majority of people and needs to be changed. And a community where we don't compromise on our values and we do everything that we can to fight for a more equitable, just, and sustainable future. So my role as chair is to help us to shape that vision for the 43rd and then to coordinate amongst all of us moving towards those goals. Our new e-board is going to be holding our annual retreat in a few weekends on March 1st. And we are going to come back to you with a vision and a plan for where we'd like to move the 43rd forward. And it's going to be informed by all of the conversations that I've had with many of you in the past few months and with the conversations that I hope to have with many of you in the near future. And it's going to include a lot of opportunities for you all to get involved, both within the LD and with organizing across the community. And so we know that no one model of engagement works for everyone. And so we're aiming to build a menu of options so that everyone can get involved based on their interests and their capacity. And I look forward not only to sharing this plan with you, but for getting you all connected to it, reporting back on how it's going, and iterating on it as new challenges appear. And through all of this, know that I am here to listen to your ideas, to help you make things happen, and to support everyone who wants to engage. And so with that, I'm going to create some space now for our new board members to do quick introductions on some of the things that, since I know some of them didn't have that opportunity to do that when we were having our rearc last month, as we were moving through things kind of speedily. And I am so excited to work with this amazing team and want to make sure that all of you know who they are as well. And so with that, I'm going to open up some space for any of our board members who'd like to do a quick introduction.
I'm happy to kick it off. Hi, everyone. My name is Frederic. I'm your new secretary, which means if you have a resolution that you want to present to the membership, you'll need to reach out to me at least 2 weeks in advance of any meeting at secretary@43rddemocrats.org. And we're also very happy well in advance of meetings to help you craft resolutions and improve them as much as possible. As for myself, I live on Capitol Hill with my wife, Catherine, and our 1-year-old, Enora. It was very important for me to get involved in this cycle because my wife is Asian American, so my daughter is a little girl of color, and I know the world is very hostile to her right now, and I'm really fearful that she'll have less rights than her mother, less right than me, and so I felt really compelled to get involved and start fighting with you all, and I'm looking forward to meeting and working with everyone here.
I can go real quick. Hi, I'm Bryce Colton. I'm one of the King County Democrats reps along with Charlotte. Um, I also live on Capitol Hill on sort of the North Broadway area, and I got involved because I'm extremely worried about the direction of the country and basically want to help create a more livable, sustainable, affordable region to be a example to the rest of the country of what good democratic governance can look like when progressivism is deeply installed as our values.
I will go. My name is Charlotte. My camera is not on and it will stay that way, so sorry. I am along with Bryce and Dean, if wherever they are, and Jacob also, we are your King County Democrats delegation. And this is my second term consecutively on the board. I am a disabled trans woman, and so my almost all of my identities are being used by the federal government as bargaining chips. And I believe it is so important that marginalized people like myself are as aware as possible of the goings on in this Washington and in the other Washington. The thing that's taking up a lot of my time right now is I'm organizing with a lot of other trans people and helping inform them and kind of picking up the slack where the American education system has failed a lot of us in terms of civic education. And so I organize somewhat regular kind of primers and talks about the way the Constitution works, the way the legislature and Congress works, using my wealth of knowledge of C-SPAN viewing and TVW viewing, and putting that to good use. And so I'm excited to be back on the board for another term. And yeah, thanks.
Yeah, I can jump in. Jacob, I'm one of our alternative King County reps, as Charlotte mentioned. And I've lived on Capitol Hill for about 10 years now. I'm like right on Broadway. And I am really like, I know there's a lot of like anxiety and fearing out there, and just people are itching to go protest or find something meaningful to do. And I'm really looking forward to helping people connect with those opportunities through writing resolutions and just finding different ways to get plugged.
I guess I can go next. I'm James Williams, he, him pronouns. I've been living in the 43rd since 2006, and I've been active in the Democratic Party here pretty much ever since. I've been a PCO almost continuously since 2008. And I just kind of got involved. I'm actually getting re-involved, mainly because of the the Trump administration is making me really concerned about the direction the country's headed. So, um, I've been active in a few other organizations too. I'm also active in the local chapter of Veterans for Peace, and I've been involved in various climate organizations over the years. But anyway, I guess that's it for me. Next.
Hi everybody. My name is Ben, he and pronouns, we're events chair. And I'll keep this short and just to say that I think with the past Prop 1A election and electing Sean Scott and Alexis Mercedes Rink, that I'm really excited to see and help the 43rd continue to elect really fantastic progressive elected officials and passing progressive initiatives that serve and represent what the 43rd is all about.
Oh, you're muted, David.
I am muted. Okay. I'm David Tamash Paris. I am your new PCO chair. I got involved volunteering for local campaigns 2 years ago with the I-135 campaign. I had just been laid off, so it was a great opportunity to get involved and keep myself busy a little bit. And that got me hooked. Started volunteering for other political campaigns, joined the 43rd in June and became a PCO. And yeah, I'm very very much a proponent now of how effective and powerful it can be when we get out and talk to our neighbors about the policies that we want to see in the world and why it is good for people. So if you're a PCO, I'm going to see a bit of you. If you want to become a PCO, then definitely get in contact with me. If you don't want to become a PCO or can't become a PCO, I'm still interested in talking to you. You'll have stuff to do if you reach out. But yeah, that's me. Thank you so much.
Hey, I'm Dawood. I use he, him pronouns. I am a state committee member along with Amy Madden. I think everyone here, I live on Capitol Hill. I got involved because I was a delegate to the state convention, and then I was just like, what else is going on here? And here I am.
Thank you, everyone. And that is by no means all of the members of our board. We'll see a few more of them as we go into some report outs later in the meeting and as they decide to introduce themselves in our future meetings. But hopefully that gives you a sense of the awesome team that is going to be coming together to help us plan out where we go. But again, this is a collective effort. This is a team sport. We need everyone involved and engaged. So as we are building out our plans, they're going to include a lot of opportunities to bring all of you in, including your ideas. And so keep an eye out for opportunities to join committees that'll be coming soon. And as always, you can reach out to me if there's something you'd like to move forward, and we can talk about how the 43rd can help in that space. With that, we do have a candidate who is joining us this evening. And so I want to make sure that we create some space to hear from them. So I'm going to hand it over to Tashika Hasegawa, who is one of the candidates for Port Commissioner, so that she can do a brief introduction and answer a few questions for all of us.
Thank you. How much time do I have, just out of curiosity?
You've got about 10 minutes.
Oh, wow, that's really generous. Hi, everybody. Good evening. My name is Toshiko Hasegawa. I use she, her pronouns. I am your elected Port of Seattle Commissioner in position 4. There's a total of 5 of us. And I'm here because I wanted to formally let you know that I plan to seek re-election to retain my seat. It's already been 4 years, and I am here in large part thanks to the Democrats. When we ran the first time, we had 17 out of 17 legislative districts, and that includes you all. I am so proud of the work that we've been able to do so far, you know, in just in what feels like a very, very short amount of time. I took office at the end of the pandemic with a vision that the port shouldn't just be about economic development as a bottom line institution. The port is a special purpose government representative of and in service to the people. And my philosophy is that when you advance an economy, but also are taking measures to promote a healthy environment, it will also promote the quality of life for people. So that's a triple bottom line approach of the economy and the environment and equity. I think representation really matters, and we've been able to do some pretty amazing stuff that I'm looking forward to telling you about. But I'm proud to appear before you today as Port President, and I'm the first Asian woman in the Port's over 110-year history to serve in this capacity. Some of the issues that we campaigned on, we've delivered on, and that includes childcare. I mean, when I campaigned last time around, I had a baby on my hip. Well, now I've got a toddler and a baby on my hip. I've got 2 now. And I know firsthand how difficult childcare is. In fact, it's a national crisis that manifests itself right here at home, and the port has a role to play in answering to that. And so just last Tuesday, we passed an order for 2 RFPs. One of them would establish a navigator program. So that's collating all of the existing resources and putting them through a navigator so that not just Port of Seattle employees, but all of our thousands of SEA, of like airport workers, would have somebody there as a resource that can guide them towards existing stipends, existing providers, other programs. But we also have real estate. We also have resources. Our second RFP was to conduct the feasibility study for a brick and mortar childcare operation. Not just can we do it, but the path to what it would look like to doing it, the siting for it, the financial models, etc. It's a big deal. I'm really excited about that. The other one I was looking forward to sharing with you was about we campaigned on establishing a memorandum of understanding with the tribes. This has never happened before with the Port of Seattle, but since I took office, we've established a memorandum of understanding with the Muckleshoot tribe, the Suquamish tribe, and the Puyallup tribe of Indians. And that really codifies not just what our shared priorities are, but how we're communicating with each other and intentionally building that relationship. I'm really proud of that. We've worked closely with our partners at the city of SeaTac and Congressman Smith to deliver on taking meaningful measures to permanently protect North SeaTac Park, which is a critical asset for the health and well-being of those airport adjacent communities, including myself. We go and we run our dog there and we bring our kids there. And yeah, those planes fly very, very low overhead. But I think the biggest one that I want to talk to you about is the Teal New Deal. So we just rolled this out, and this is the plan for an activated SODO area to be able to lead the clean energy revolution globally from right here at home. That doesn't just mean decarbonizing our own operation, and it does entail that. We're going to be investing millions of dollars over the next 5 years for for state-of-the-art infrastructure that can support sustainable maritime operations in clean energy, transitioning away from a fossil fuel paradigm. That looks like shore power at continuing investments in shore power for not just cruise, but for the cargo industry, pioneering a green, we've already pioneered a green cruise corridor, which gets the entire industry on board with state-of-the-art approaches, but we're going to actually do this for cargo with a green cargo corridor in a pilot program with the Port of Busan in South Korea in March. So yes, transforming our own operations, but it also means acknowledging that Washington State is a leader in clean energy. Under Governor Inslee's leadership, we've activated Washington as the hydrogen hub. We have production in sustainable aviation fuels. We have production of nuclear and clean energy over in central Washington. And the Port of Seattle needs a plan now for the infrastructure to facilitate the proliferation of those goods to the broader market. So that's what I mean by an activated SODO to support a clean energy transformation. It also means partnerships with folks like Greater Seattle Partners to do international marketing to be able to attract some of those business prospects for this energy transformation. I mean, we have a lunatic in the White House screaming, drill, baby, drill. But I believe firmly that local government is exactly where we can and should be leading on our progressive ideals. That doesn't just mean environmentally. It also means using my power, my platform, my privilege to be a voice for civil rights, for social justice. We remain committed in our resolve to support equity, diversity, inclusion, not just environmentally, but practicably in our departments, in our policies, in our book of work, in our strategies to close the gaps in pay, in promotions, in benefits for that we have literally observed and measured in our workforce and have identified strategies to be able to address that. And it also means standing in solidarity with our members of community when they are under attack. So we are working closely to identify strategies legally that we can do to keep our own community members safe, to keep our workers safe at the airport, at Maritime. And it also means partnerships with community-based organizations who work more closely with some of those communities with proximity to the threat, quite frankly. So I've said a lot of things. The port is big, and it's just a matter of what you're interested in. I'm happy to come up for air and take some Q&A and go into detail about whatever it is you'd like to talk about. But I am proud to have the early support of Governor Ferguson, of Attorney General Nick Brown, of our King County Council members Teresa Mosqueda and Rod Dembowski and Jorge Barron, as well as the unions that the early endorsement of the unions that represent port workers. So SEIU 6, Unite Here Local 8, Protect 17, and many others. I do hope to be able to earn your support as well. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, Commissioner Hasegawa. And with that, can you throw your, so I know we're hitting up a little bit on time. And so to keep us on our agenda, I'm going to encourage you to throw your email in the chat. And if anyone has any particular questions, can they use that to reach out to you?
Yeah, so what I'm going to do is if you have a question about port operations, reach out to me at my official address. I'm also going to leave my campaign address. And I wanted to share that I'm doing my campaign kickoff this Saturday, 10 o'clock a.m. at El Centro de la Raza off of the Beacon Hill Light Rail Station. Would love to talk to you all about our thoughts about alternatives to flights to move people meaningfully around our region, seeing as we're a transportation hub. I didn't even get to delve into that. And I see your what's on your agenda for later on. And what I think I'll do is I might hop over to my other meeting and then come back in case anybody has any questions, and I could be here as just a point of information for y'all.
That sounds wonderful. And thank you again for joining us this evening.
Thank you.
Okay. And with that, we're going to transition over to our featured speaker for the evening. So let me pull up, do a spotlight. There we go. And so a warm introduction to Vanessa Gutierrez. Vanessa is the deputy director at the Northwest Immigrants' Rights Project and has graciously agreed to come and share some information with us. And so I will pass it over to you, Vanessa. Thank you again for joining us.
Yes, thank you so much. Yeah, so I'm Vanessa Gutierrez, Co-Deputy Director at the Northwest Immigrant Rights Project. I'm going to assume people don't know who we are, so I'll do a real quick introduction. And then I'm going to talk a little bit about what we're seeing locally with our immigrant rights movements. And I much prefer dialogue than just me talking at you, so feel free to jump in and ask any questions you might have. I think we have about 20 minutes. Northwest Immigrant Rights Project, or we're often referred to as NIRP, is the only statewide legal service provider that provides comprehensive immigration legal services for free for low-income immigrants across the state. We've been around for over 40 years, and we do our work through direct legal services, systemic advocacy, and community education. But our primary focus is those direct legal services. I've been with the organization for about 15 years now. I started there right out of law school. And I'm actually in Wenatchee tonight. So we have 4 offices: Seattle, Tacoma, Wenatchee, and Granger in the Yakima Valley. And let's see. So I know it's not news to anybody, but we're seeing lots of attacks on our immigrant neighbors, executive orders that are blatantly unconstitutional. One big example that I'm sure everyone's heard about is the executive order attacking birthright citizenship. Our organization, with other partners and with several states, filed lawsuits to stop that. We have a preliminary injunction in place. So moving forward, for the time being, children born to undocumented immigrants continue to be citizens. They have that right under the Constitution. We also are seeing attacks on funding for immigration legal services providers like ourselves. We had two of our programs have been impacted. One was our legal orientation program, where we provide information for people detained at the ICE detention center in Tacoma, where they house individuals that are in ICE custody. They sent us an email on a Wednesday a couple weeks ago and said immediately stop that work. So that stopped our access to go in and do those presentations. And often a lot of the clients that we see at the detention center, we don't represent. There's just not enough of us to represent all the people that are there that need services. And so a lot of people go into court unrepresented and up against a government prosecutor, up against a judge. Most of the judges, maybe I think all of the judges, are former ICE attorneys. So you can imagine it's an uphill battle to argue their cases. And our program was there for a lot of them, the only information they got before going into court. So it was an opportunity to explain potential options they may have to stay in the US, or what the process looks like for them, what to expect. So we filed a lawsuit right away, got that stopped. We were able to go back in and do that work. Then again, just today, we got another email telling us to stop our unaccompanied children's program work. And so that's for youth that entered the country without an adult guardian and are in deportation proceedings. Many of them are seeking asylum. They were in custody of the government, released to some guardian in the US. And we have one of the many contracts across the country to provide them legal services. And so that just got stopped today. And we are, again, working to file lawsuits. So we're seeing lots of these threats to due process for people trying to access protections that they're entitled to under the law. We're seeing violations of all sorts of constitutional rights. We with other partners are doing a lot of what we call Know Your Rights presentations, where we talk about what to do if ICE shows up at somebody's home or somebody's workplace. Our primary messaging is, remember that people have the right to remain silent. They don't have to sign anything or say anything, and they have the right to speak to an attorney. So immigrants have the right to an attorney in deportation proceedings, but they don't have a right to a government paid for attorney. So lots of people are going up against these systems without representation. So and our organization provides some of those services, but again, the need is so great that we are only scratching the surface as to what people need. Let's see. Any questions so far? Okay.
And as a reminder to our members, if you have a question, you can use the raise hand feature, which is at the bottom of the Zoom bar, or you can throw a question into chat.
Okay, and I'm not sure that I can see the hands. I can see the chat, but if anybody just jump right in and let me know. Okay, so yeah, a lot of what we're doing to continue to defend immigrant rights is in the courts. It's our litigation team and our representation of individual clients to pursue their options. So what are we doing to protect those resources that we have? We have at the state level. So because the federal government right now is trying to attack funding for all sorts of nonprofits, including immigrant rights nonprofits, we are looking to ask the state to help us expand immigration legal services. We already have in place some funding, but we're going back and asking for this biennium for additional state money to provide representation. There's also several other immigrant friendly bills at the state level. Some of the big ones that we're following and championing are the health equity for immigrants that would allow people who don't have immigration status to access health benefits from the state. And also the wage replacement for excluded undocumented workers, which is like unemployment insurance for those that do not have immigration status, but were working jobs, paying taxes, paying into the system. And so those are moving along. The health equity for immigrants bill is not moving forward, but there is now a proviso, I never can say that word, proviso.
Proviso.
Proviso, asking to maintain the level of funding that's there now. Yeah, I guess I can also talk a little bit about what we're seeing in terms of enforcement. So prior to Trump taking office, there was a lot more use of discretion, which means that ICE officers and ICE attorneys could look at a case, look at the totality of the circumstances, consider somebody's situation, are they caregiver for somebody who is a child or somebody elderly, or somebody with a disability, or somebody relying on them, how long they've been in the US, whether they have criminal history and what sort of criminal history. Now, everybody who's undocumented that comes across them most likely are going to be targeted for enforcement, and their default now is detention. So they are detaining, we're seeing people with 20-year-old deportation orders living peacefully in the community, no criminal history, ICE following them, as they get out of their job and detaining them. And in Tacoma, in our detention center in the area, we have judges who are finding that they don't have jurisdiction for bond in a lot of cases where somebody entered the country without inspection. And so people are sitting in detention for months or even years if they choose to fight their cases. And so we're looking at options for litigation around that as well. And I see there's a hand up now. Jacob?
Yeah, that's me. Speaking of the detention centers, two questions. One, do we have insight into like the conditions there, or are those basically a black box? And two, I read today that some immigrants are being sent to Guantanamo Bay.
Yeah.
Is that true?
It's true. So that program I talked about earlier, the legal orientation program, that was, or it continues to be, but they're trying to get rid of it. Our way of seeing what's happening inside the detention center through our ability to speak to the people that are detained there. So they would, tell us the conditions are not great. It's a prison. The food is bad. Our clients are malnourished. They're sitting in, dark rooms for hours and hours all day. There's lots of just mental health depression from, you know, the situation that people are in, and not a lot of great access to healthcare. I can share, I had a client recently who, a male client who started developing, he was growing breasts because of the food he was eating. And they didn't take him seriously. So he filed a complaint. There are still those mechanisms. They usually don't go very far and don't make a lot of change. One other bill that's going through our state legislature right now is involving the Department of Health being able to access the detention center and ensure that things are sanitary and that people are being taken care of. But that's not what we hear from a lot of our clients. Was there another part to that question, or did that answer it?
That was it. Thank you.
Okay. Okay. So, and then I see somebody asked, how do we support your work? Thank you for raising that question. We are doing a lot of online webinars. And I think the biggest thing that people can do right now is continue to educate yourselves on what is actually happening, because there's so much misinformation out there about immigration issues. You're welcome to attend one of our webinars. They're free. We record them, so they'll be made available later. We have one coming up. I think, let me just check the date so I don't get it wrong. I think the 24th. It's going to be targeted towards service providers that serve immigrant communities. So it's a bit what we call an Immigration 101, where we'll go more into depth into kind of the things I'm talking about now. That'll be about an hour training. And then we do Know Your Rights presentations for community members. And we're doing them in English, but through Zoom, we're able to have interpretation in a lot of languages. So people are welcome to join those. Obviously, fundraising is incredible for us. We just saw hundreds of Seattle restaurants, you may have seen, did a fundraiser for us and other immigrant rights organizations, giving us some of their proceeds for our work. We have our annual gala coming up in downtown Seattle at the Westin on May 16th, and we just put tickets out for that. And I see Aaron has a hand, and then there's a question in the chat. So why don't we start with Aaron?
Hey, yeah, I just wanted to provide some social analysis that I'm hearing, which is that this is from like nationalism, obviously, because before it was Christian nationalism, like othering Arabs, and now that they're sending people to Guantanamo Bay, it is kind of like this addition of like a terrorist moniker to like considering anyone who's not a citizen. Like Bannon called it like inclusive nationalism. And so it's like this idea of like othering anyone who's not part of the quote unquote Judeo-Christian tradition or a citizen. So this is just fascism. So I just hope that people are really aware.
Yeah,
Thanks, that's all.
Thank you. Yeah, and they're not just going after who they say they're going after in the news, right? They're going after immigrants that have status. They're going after undocumented communities, mixed status families, all sorts of people. And with these mass raids that we're hearing about, they're bound to pick up people who are citizens, right? Just because of how they look. And so lots of people are being impacted. Okay, so the other question is, what are our elected officials doing to block these human rights violations? One thing that we have in Washington is the Keep Washington Working Act that was passed in 2019, which bans our state and local agencies from working with ICE. So we're not going to use our resources to do the federal government's job. That doesn't mean that they can't come in and enforce immigration law. So we often hear about sanctuary. That it's not exactly accurate, because it doesn't mean people are completely protected from immigration enforcement. And we're seeing already lots of long-term residents being targeted, especially those that have old deportation orders. And we're seeing they're using right out of the Project 2025 playbook. I just reread a practice advisory on the immigration points that were in there, and to the T. They're going down the list and doing all the things that are in there. Are there any rallies to? Yes, there's a couple of groups that are grassroots organizer advocates that are often doing actions at the detention center. La Resistencia is a major one, and the Washington Immigrant Solidarity Network, which we're a part of, is a coalition of organizations across the state that are pushing immigrant rights, and they're referred to as WISN, Washington Immigrant Solidarity Network. They have a hotline where people can call in at ICE activity, and they have volunteers. So another thing that people can do is attend their trainings, consider joining rapid response teams, and then they have accompaniment programs where people can come alongside somebody who has to go in for an appointment with ICE or court, that sort of thing. I don't know of any of our officials that are supporting the prisons. We heard about one person from the Seattle area already that got taken to Guantanamo, and the family found out about it in a New York Times article. They don't notify family when they move people around in detention centers. Yeah, I'll put in the WISN information in a second. Yeah, and they're doing pretty regular trainings. We're also going to start, if you want to follow us on our social media platforms, we're going to start doing monthly updates just because things are moving so quickly. And we're trying to share information as fast as we can with community members. But yeah, I'll put that in. I highly recommend doing one of the rapid response trainings, and they'll kind of go over some of the tactics that we see ICE use. They often use what we call administrative warrants, which won't hold up in court. So they're not signed by a judge. They didn't go through the proper process for it to be a legal warrant that people have to comply with. But often they'll show up somewhere and say, here's this warrant, piece of paper that they wrote up, looks official, but is not authorized by a judge for them to execute that warrant. So people don't have to comply with them. And one of the major ways that they arrest people is because that individual gave them information about where they were born or what their immigration status is. So that's one of the big things that we're pushing is people knowing that they have constitutional rights, even regardless of their immigration status. Yeah, so I think I'm at time. I will put my contact information. If there's anything that you want to follow up on, I'm happy to do so. And then I'll put the information for WISN. But I don't know if we have a couple more minutes, I'm happy to answer any other questions there might be.
Yeah, I think we've got time for maybe one more question. And then also, as a heads up for everyone, all of these resources I will send out also in a follow-up email tomorrow. But I think Justin's got a final question. Oh, nope. Saying exactly the thing that we were talking about. We'll send this out in a follow-up email. We've got time for maybe one more question. If anyone has one final question for Vanessa.
Okay. Yeah, if I just respond to that last comment. Yep. Immigrant rights have been under attack well before Trump. We're seeing it like we've never seen it before. But there's all sorts of elected officials that claim to be immigrant friendly that have we saw lots and lots of deportations, lots of attacks on asylum under Biden as well. So it's really important that we hold everybody accountable to all of our elected officials. And thank you so much for being interested in this topic and for giving us the space to share a little bit of information. And I'll put a little I'll put a comment on in the chat about WISN and their website. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Vanessa. Thank you for taking time. I know you've got a lot on your plate, and we really appreciate you making the time to come and share this information with us. Okay. I should spotlight myself for a second. Okay. And as mentioned, we will do a follow-up email, and so share these resources out. Okay. Going back a little bit in the agenda, we now have quorum. Yay. So we need to go back kind of back to the beginning, and we need to do a quick couple of things. So I will entertain a motion to approve the agenda for the evening that we are already halfway through.
So moved.
Okay, and I see a second. Are there any objections to approving the agenda? Any objections? Any objections? Okay, the agenda is approved. Next up, we have to do an approval of our minutes from our 2025 meeting, which was our reorg. Special shout out again to our now comms chair, Justin, who took on the emergency secretary duties and took notes for us during the reorg meeting, even though that was not his job. So thank you, Justin, for taking that on. I'll entertain a motion to approve the minutes from our January reorg.
Motion to approve.
Do I hear a second?
Second, Andrew.
Okay. Any objections? Any objections? Any objections? Okay. The minutes from the January meeting are approved. Okay, working our way back down the agenda. Those of you following along on the agenda, let me throw the link for the agenda in the chat one more time for people who are following along at home. You might notice that we had a little section for the Washington Institute for a Democratic Future overview. We have a couple, I think we have 6 members of the 43rd who are going through this training on how to get more involved in democratic politics. Unfortunately, our speakers for the evening, one is sick and one wasn't able to make it. So we will be having them come back next month to share a little bit about what that program is like and some ways that you can support them through a fundraiser. Okay, next item on our agenda is Vanessa just did an amazing job of giving us an update on our refugee and immigrant communities that we know are facing a lot of challenges. We also wanted to just highlight a couple of different resources that are around for members of our LGBTQ plus community, particularly the trans members of our community that we know are also facing a large amount of just struggles in general from what's going on at the federal level. I'm not going to throw these all into the chat. You all can find them in the agenda under the supporting our LGBTQ plus community section. I will also send these out in that follow-up email tomorrow. But to just name a couple of resources here, we have the Trans Lifeline, the Gender Justice League, the Lavender Rights Project, Somos Seattle, the Seattle LGBTQ plus Center, which was formerly Gay City. And then there's also a link to some additional resources and a wide variety of different local groups that are working to support our LGBTQ community members. And so if you are a member of that community or you know anyone who is, please share these resources widely. Our goal is always to make sure that people have the support that they need. Yes, Charlotte.
Thank you. I wanted to bring to folks' attention, there's a bill that was heard in the legislature today. I believe it's House Bill 1971, and that is by our own Nicole Macri. And that the purpose of it, 1971, is to increase access to prescription hormone therapy. And so obviously you can only get a certain amount of estrogen or progesterone or testosterone at a time. This bill would allow folks to get for non-controlled substances, so this doesn't include testosterone, but for progesterone, for estradiol, which is the most common form of estrogen, it allows you to get a 12-month supply of that medication at one time. Not quite sure how it shakes out with Medicaid or Medicare, but it allows prescribing medical professionals in the state of Washington to prescribe 12-month dispensable medications for hormone therapy, and that is going to do a great deal for folks like me who are trans and who are worried about the loss of Medicaid funding or the ability to access financial assistance to get their medications. So just I wanted to put that on folks' radar. You can sign up to testify, which if you've done that before in the legislature doesn't mean you have to speak. You can sign in pro to the bill. You can send a comment to Representative Macri, thanking her for her work with this bill. Representative Scott is also a co-sponsor. Love him down for that. And then send a note to Senator Peterson, ask him to support the bill, but I'm sure he will. There is no Senate equivalent companion bill, I think the term is, But just wanted to put that on folks' radar. If anyone wants an action item for supporting access to trans healthcare, we know that there was at least one person, one kid, whose top surgery was canceled at Seattle Children's after an executive order was signed by the president. And there have been community out there on Sandpoint Way protesting in support of these kids and their families. So be on the lookout for action items. I know that Indivisible Seattle has a lot of good action items around this. And feel free to contact me. As I'm trans myself and as I'm queer myself, I can try and be a distributor of action items if folks are curious where to go. And so I'll put my 43rd email in the chat if folks want to reach out. And I don't think I have anything else to add. Thank you.
Thank you, Charlotte. And thank you for sharing those local opportunities for us to get involved. I believe that there's going to be a march on March 2nd. Let me say that again, a march on March 2nd in support of gender affirming care for youth, specifically focusing on Seattle Children's. And so as we get more details about that, we'll make sure to also send that out to everyone. In addition, there is also some bills making their way through the state legislature right now that are modifications to the Parents' Bill of Rights that was passed through initiative last year that created some loopholes that created some dangers for our trans students in schools if they were accessing services around their gender identity and counseling. And so those are also working their way through the legislature. So we'll share those as well in our email tomorrow on bills that we can all be pushing for on the local level to make sure that our trans community is getting all of the support that they need.
And I also wanted to add, just really quickly, I was able to meet with Senator Claire Wilson last month and was able to ask her about why the Senate, I think it was unanimously passed that Parents' Bill of Rights. And for people who aren't as plugged in as I wasn't, if the Senate or the legislature had amended the initiative in any way, they couldn't have done anything to it or rescinded any part of it or anything like that for 2 years. Because they passed it unchanged, they can do what they're doing now and make changes to it, rescissions, what have you. And so that's why I had a big issue with a lot of the senators for voting for it. And I just wanted to dispel any worries regarding that. Sorry, I'll stop.
No, thank you, Charlotte. Okay. So with that, we are now going to move into our resolutions. We have 3 resolutions this evening. So I wanted to review the resolution process with everyone before we jump into that. So the way that our resolution process works is we're going to start by having someone who will speak to the bill. They will walk us through the bill as well as share any background information that is important for us to understand what the bill is stating, what it's asking us to do. There will then be a period where we can ask questions. Those questions need to be about the bill. This is not a space where you can, it's not a space to share your perspective on the bill. It is just a space to ask questions to make sure that we're all on the same page about what the bill does. From there, we'll open up the floor to see if anyone would like to make statements against and for the bill. If all we have is people who want to speak for the bill, then we will move along to voting on the bill. If we have people who would like to speak against the bill, we'll take up to 2 people for and up to 2 people against in even numbers in order to hear from both of them before we go to listening to the bill. As we're doing that back and forth, there's also the opportunity if people would like to propose amendments to the bill. When those come up, we will take them in the order that they appear. So just want to make sure we're on the same page around that. Does anyone have any questions about our process for how we are going to go through these resolutions? Okay, so the first resolution that we have up is our resolution in support of the City of Seattle developing, the development of low-income housing on surplus Fort Lawton land. I'm going to throw the resolution into the chat for people who'd like to see it. I am going to highlight Toby. I think Toby was going to speak to this. Toby, and then Toby, I can do, if at any point you want me to do, I can also do a screen share so that people can see the resolution as you're chatting about it, if that would be helpful.
I don't think that's necessary.
Yep.
I assume you've published it. I would point out that the resolution has a number of links. So if you want to actually dig into it, the resolution takes you there.
Gotcha.
So I should do my presentation now?
Yeah, go ahead.
So I don't know how many of you know, but Fort Lawton used to be a military base all the way back to the First World War. And in the 70s, 60s and 70s, the urban and other indigenous communities agitated and actually took some of the land. And then a few years later, the feds, the Department of Defense, leased the place to the city and kept a little bit of it in the northeast corner. And more recently, in the last few years, the city asked the feds to give the city the land so that we could construct some low-income housing on it. And the benefit of that is we get low-income housing, and because the land is basically free, it's not part of the market where you have to pay lots of money per acre. It makes it so that the city has an easier time putting together the construction and putting the project together. And so the planning has been going on for this project for a long time. And it's gone through a SEPA process, and a supplemental EIS is in process right now. You can go and look at it. I think I saw there was a comment deadline or a meeting today or yesterday. The steps that the city needs to go through to make this project happen are in play now. And in order to support the city to have this project happen, a informal coalition has built to support it. This resolution was initiated in the 36 because that's where Fort Lawton is. And I and another person worked to put this resolution together. The support for this from Daybreak Star and the United Indians of All Tribes is strong, and it was passed by the 36th on a fairly large majority vote. It passed in the 46th. It passed in the 37th, and we're hoping that you'll pass it. You had it on the agenda last fall, but didn't have a quorum. So I'm happy to answer questions. The city has the final approval for the actual transfer of the entire site for this project, and is in the process of reviewing RFPs, responding to RFPs to make the project be built. And this is low-income housing, both owner and rental and permanent supportive housing. It's quite a remarkable good thing for us to have, and I hope you will support it. And I'm happy to answer questions.
Yeah, thank you, Toby. So I'm going to do a real quick screen share just so everyone can see the resolution. And it reiterates a lot of the things Toby just shared. Our whereas clauses give a lot of the history of this land and the indigenous communities that have been a part of it, and talk through some of the most recent developments that have been happening. But I just want to highlight the therefore clauses just so everyone's aware of what the resolution would do. This is the 43rd enthusiastically supporting the city to proceed with the redevelopment plan, urging the city to prioritize this project to provide housing for indigenous communities and households, and conveying its support to the city council, the mayor, and the involved federal agencies. So just want to make sure we name what the resolution is calling for. And with that, I'll open it up for any questions that anyone has for Toby around this resolution. Yeah, Aaron.
Yeah, I'm a super Palestine enthusiast, and I'm just curious, and this is relevant. What is the actual stance of the tribes there? Do they want their land back, or do they actually advocate for what you're proposing? I didn't see it in the bill.
Well, there are a number of tribal interests involved. The United Indians are supportive, and also the Chief Seattle Club, which is a low-income housing entity. They're one of the applicants for the contract to proceed with the permanent supportive housing portion of it, which is the first piece up. So I'm not aware of any Duwamish, Muckleshoot. I'm not aware of anybody being opposed to this.
Okay, just curious. Thanks.
Thank you. Yeah, Paul.
Yeah, just a little bit more information. The city has been working on this for close to a decade now, and it's been held up by one person largely in Magnolia who is very, very opposed to low-income housing going in there and has ginned up a bunch of concern trolling about it. But as Toby was mentioning, like this was essentially free land given to the city for the purposes of low-income housing. There's like, it doesn't get any better than this really for opportunity to build low-income housing in the city.
Thank you, Paul. Nora.
So I looked at the assessment that the resolution linked to about the options for densifying to make sure it was cost effective. And I noticed that there were two of them, two different options it was considering. And it wasn't clear to me whether this resolution was supporting a specific one of those alternatives or just saying we should do either one of them to make sure the housing gets built.
You're getting into details. Ring a bell. If you look at the last whereas, what I'm most familiar with is that the project didn't pencil very well in the first iteration, and it was redone, and that's the reassessment that I've linked to that actually improved it. I thought it was an impressive piece of work. It improved the financing by increasing the density so that the cost per unit was lower. And it also improved the retention of trees and the greenscaping. Some of the complaints from our 36 neighbors in Magnolia concerned asking to put the whole thing into the park. That property has not had much of the property, the part that is to be housing has not had forest on it for a century. The part that does, everything in the southwest corner goes and stays in green. And a considerable portion of it, 15% or so of the property goes into staying green.
Thank you, Toby. Okay, I don't see any other questions. So now we're going to transition over to potential debate. So I will start by asking if there is anyone who would like to speak in opposition to this resolution. Anyone who'd like to speak in opposition? Oh, Charlotte? Is this a hand raised for opposition, or is this a question?
Point of information. Just to clarify, somebody must speak in opposition, or
so if we don't have someone who's speaking in opposition, then instead of doing the statements for and against because they need to be balanced, we'll just move immediately to the vote.
Okay, I'll be quiet then.
No, right. I appreciate you asking. I'm sure someone else had that same question. Yes, Amy.
If there is no opposition, I would like to move to pass by acclamation.
Second.
That's second. Is there anyone opposed to passing this by acclamation? Any opposed? Any opposed? Okay, then the 43rd passes this resolution by acclamation. Thank you, Toby, for bringing this forward. Thank you, Paul, for helping get it all set up for the 43rd. Okay.
Thank you very much. I'm going to sign off.
Okay, so
I've got my 36th meeting tomorrow, so I've got another one to do.
Oh, back to back. That sounds like fun. Okay, our next resolution up is the resolution to require an environmental impact statement versus an environmental assessment for the Port of Seattle Tacoma's International Airport Sustainable Airport Master Plan expansion. This is maybe in the running for one of the longest titles we've had for a resolution, but a very important topic. I believe, is Brandon? Brandon, you're going to speak to this? Brandon and Robin?
Yeah.
Okay.
Good evening. I'm glad to briefly speak to it. And maybe I'll go first and then Robin, you can add anything. I did help write this, but I did not write that title. So don't blame me. So yeah, my name's Brandon Bowersox Johnson, and I am a Democrat here in the 43rd. So glad to be at this meeting. This resolution has sort of made the rounds of some different LDs. And I'm just going to briefly in 2 minutes explain it, and then I'm glad to just hang on for any questions. So very briefly, you probably know the SeaTac Airport is planning a major expansion. But what you might not know is that the draft environmental assessment surprisingly found that that wouldn't have any impact on health or on climate. But really, it will. And so I'll just briefly highlight, as the resolution explains in some of those early clauses, the health impacts are really significant. The state supported a study that found higher rates, the closer you live towards the airport, higher rates of hospitalization from heart disease, from stroke, from diabetes, and higher overall death rates that total up to like a 5-year shorter life expectancy for our communities who live nearest to the airport compared to the King County average. And so obviously if we add 30% more, more flights, we're going to have a bigger discrepancy, a bigger unfair health impact on those communities. But also it's a significant climate thing. 24% of Seattle's climate pollution, according to our city's greenhouse gas inventory, is from aviation. And increasing that, 30%, that's a big chunk. Even on a statewide level, 8% of our state's greenhouse gas pollution is aviation. And so increasing that by a third, we can't afford if we want to meet our state's climate targets. So it does have health and climate impacts. The EA environmental assessment was sort of the short version of the process that found no impacts, especially because a lot of climate pollution is actually not regulated by NEPA. There's no significance threshold. So the port in that EA process was able to claim, well, there's no impact actually because the federal government hasn't set a particular threshold. And the same with a lot of the health impacts. There's actually no significance threshold for PM 2.5, the very small particulate matter that is the type of air pollution that is causing those higher rates of heart disease, stroke, diabetes, and so on. So what this resolution asks for is to try to make that right. And I hope you'll vote yes and support this. And here's how this resolution tries to take a step towards making this right. The first whereas clause asks that before the airport expand, that they mitigate the noise, the health, the air quality impacts. So let's do mitigations to protect the neighbors who live close to this airport. The second whereas clause asks that they do a full environmental impact statement, not the short version, the short EA that was done, which was insufficient, but do a full EIS so that we can really look at what the harms are going to be from expansion and mitigate them. How do we protect our communities? How can we be the best airport at protecting the environment and protecting the health and the climate? So those are the main whereas clauses, number 1 and 2, that are really the meat of this, that I hope you'll support. And the last thing I'll say is this is very timely. The port just concluded a round of public comments on this draft EA. And so now's the chance when they're sifting through those comments and making it better, that they could decide to do the full EIS or decide to add mitigations because it's obvious there are impacts that need to be mitigated. And so they're just taking that NEPA feedback in now, and we'll be soon starting the state level process. So please support this now. It's timely. I hope we can bring some justice to the near airport communities and build a transportation system that can, work for everyone in our region and in our state. And thank you all. I'm glad to hang around for questions, and I really appreciate your time on this.
Thank you, Brandon. And then Robin, I know you're the one who also brought this resolution forward. Do you have any additional context you want to provide?
Yeah, I guess I would just say I hadn't realized before I looked into this as much what the effect of the airplanes is, and they're literally like just raining toxic dust on the people who live underneath. Yeah, so I'm in the 43rd Environmental Caucus, and we connected with Brandon and the No Added Harm Coalition to work on this resolution.
Thank you, Robin. And we also have Commissioner Hasegawa back as an additional resource. So I'm going to open it up now to any questions that anyone has. Remove the spotlights and we'll just go whoever's talking. Does anyone have any questions around this resolution? Yeah, Paul.
Yeah, what are the alternates to doing the expansion? And if they do the EIS, what would you like to see come out of that?
Yeah, I guess I can quickly weigh in, and others could too. I think that, the expansion may happen, but this resolution is asking for a full EIS that includes mitigation, so that even if the expansion is happening and all these projects are going to happen that accommodate more flights at SeaTac, that we actually include mitigation steps for the community health and the climate issues. So things on health could include more protection for air quality. There's already a program that helps insulate homes with better windows and sound insulation because the noise actually is proven to also have a health impact. But that, that had sort of run out of money. And so a lot of the homes that were eligible never got their upgrades or never got those upgrades repaired. So things like that are mitigations that are, proven to help people. Like even indoor air filters are proven to help address the small PM 2.5 particulate that's part of the air quality problem. So there are ways we can protect our community and take care of people. And basically, we should be unlocking those mitigation dollars. The expansion is going to cost like $5 billion. We should be spending even 1% of that would be a significant resource we could tap for a fair amount of mitigation that community could be protected with. So the EIS process is a way to unlock that, to really look at what are the impacts and what are the fair mitigations. So I hope that answers your question in part, and I see more hands.
Do you mind if I answer also?
Feel free.
So the Sustainable Airport Master Plan is a sum of 31 different projects. It's not just one big project. And these are projects that have to go through, it's regulated by the FAA. So the Port of Seattle is not the regulatory authority. The process is defined by the FAA. They're the ones who decided that it would go, through the NEPA process and do an environmental assessment instead of an EA. And they're the ones who decide timelines for comment periods and stuff. Those aren't things that we have in direct control. So, for example, the Port Commission wrote to them and requested that they expand the comment period, and they did that. But the question that you asked was, what can you do instead? After this, then the Port Commission will vote either to approve or reject projects of the 31 projects on a case-by-case basis over the next 10 years. So there are key pieces. One of the biggest projects is additional gates. But that's not actually what drives capacity or flights. those flights already happen, but it happens with a hard stand where people get onto planes and then are shuttled to a place and then climb up into the airplane in the middle of the tarmac. This expansion would accommodate and give gates to them, creating a better and safer customer experience. The driver to this is actually demand, and the key indicator for demand is population growth. The PSRC predicts that by 2035, our region will grow by another 1 million. And so part of the conversation I'm engaged with as a port commissioner is, what are alternatives to air travel that we could offer to people, including a high-speed ground transportation option? Governor Gregoire is continuing to lead that work. And then our senators, Cantwell and Murray, were dedicated to ensuring Washington State and the next infrastructure bill would be in the works for like ground transportation, but things have changed at the federal level. So I hope that's just all helpful context for you all.
Thank you. And Robin, do you have some additional points?
Yeah, I was just going to tag on to what the commissioner was just saying, which is there are a fair percentage of flights that are local. And those flights, you know, if we had, say, better Amtrak service, that could take over for those flights.
Yeah, thank you, Robin. Bryce, I know I saw your hand up. Or did you have a question? Or are you good?
Oh no, I'm sorry. I just put food in my mouth. I wanted to point out the fun fact that the #1 international destination out of SeaTac Airport in terms of passengers traveled is Vancouver, just across the border. And a substantial amount of domestic travel is also fully within a high-speed rail ground transportation system. Portland pre-2019 was also in the top 10 of domestic locations. If you think even a little bit wider, you could start imagining something like a sleeper train down to the California coast. It could take a lot of demand because I'm 6'6". I don't want to be in an airplane either. There are so many other things that we could be doing instead of having more flights through our air and polluting our airspace, and the noise pollution is immense as well. I live under the flight path when SeaTac is doing the southern direction. So sorry, not to ramble, but I just wanted to bring that up.
Yes. Okay. Jacob.
Yeah, just a point of clarification. We actually do have a sleeper car going from Seattle down California coast, stopping in like LA, San Francisco. I think going to the other sand. There's 2 sands in California. I'm blanking on the other. I do support having more trains and faster trains, especially after having been in Japan recently and seeing their train network. But just we do have a sleeper car if you want to use that. It's a lot of fun.
Thank you. Yes, I've done the Chicago sleeper and it's a joy.
Excellent. Okay. Seeing no other questions, we're now going to move into seeing if there is anyone who would like to speak against. Again, what we'll do now is if there are people who'd like to speak against, we'll hear statements pro and against in equal measure up to 2. Is there anyone who'd like to speak against the resolution? Okay, I'm not seeing anyone. I'd entertain a motion to move to a vote.
So moved.
Okay. Do you have a second?
Second.
Okay. So we are now going to move to our vote. So as a reminder, we'll have a link in the chat. When you click on the link, it'll take you to the ballot. I will do a quick screen share to remind everyone. I know we did it for check-in, but just in case. So you will you'll open up your ballot. It'll look like this. You will put your voting code from your email right in here. And then the question is, how do you vote? A yes vote means that you are voting to pass this resolution. A no vote means you are voting to not pass the resolution, and an abstain is a vote to not vote either way. Okay, so I'm going to give everyone a minute or so to get those ballots in before we move on to the next one. If you need a little bit more time, that is totally okay. We will not close the ballot for a few minutes, but give everyone a little bit of time right now, including myself, to vote real quick. Okay, just to check in with everyone, is there anyone who's having any issues accessing the ballot, or anyone who needs additional support in getting their voting code? Okay, thank you for letting me know. This. Okay, and again, if anyone's having any issues with their voting code, please email Tally at 43rd Democrats to get some support. Okay, while we're finishing up this vote, we'll move forward to our last resolution, and then we'll come back and we'll close out the vote for this one. But in the interest of moving us forward and getting to our third resolution, thank you all for your efficiency this evening as we work through these. Okay, next up is our third resolution, which is the resolution and calling for Governor Ferguson to support a wealth tax in Washington state. I will throw the link for this resolution in the chat. This resolution was brought forward by Paul. So Paul, I'm going to spotlight you and hand it over to you to tell us what this resolution is all about.
Yeah, thanks. So this resolution has a lot of information I'm sure you've all heard before. As you read through the resolution, you see there's a bunch of links that go out to supporting details. Much of this, like I said, is not new. We've got one of the most regressive tax codes in the country. We've got a multi-billion-dollar budget deficit coming over the next 4 years. We're still not amply funding schools. As you are all aware, I'm sure the MAGA administration is cutting money left and right from federal programs, from states. Washington, of course, is going to, bear a large brunt of those cuts. Republicans are continuing to cut taxes. They're going to give tax cuts to the oligarchs and, no tax cuts or raise taxes on the rest of us. We get like about $25 billion from Congress, and a bunch of that goes to public education. Unfortunately, within all this context, one more thing, we had the initiative repealing the capital gains tax on large capital gains, and that was defeated by 64% of the vote. So a large majority of the state supported taxing the rich in order to fund education and other things in Washington state. Within this context, our new governor, Bob Ferguson, has publicly stated that he opposes a wealth tax. So rather than a small tax on the ultra rich, Bob Ferguson has instead asked that all of the state agencies look for places that they can cut. So cut services, cut staff, cut programs. And so this resolution is calling on Governor Bob Ferguson to change his mind and instead endorse the wealth tax. And then it also calls on our legislators to enact a wealth tax. I believe our representatives are wholeheartedly on board, and Senator Peterson might be. I can't recall where he's at on the wealth tax these days. I know he's had some concerns around details in the past. And then it asks that everybody within the 43rd contact the governor's office and ask him to change his mind and support the wealth tax. So that's the resolution in a nutshell.
Thank you, Paul. Opening it up for questions. Does anyone have any questions around this resolution?
Correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think if the legislature passed a wealth tax bill, I don't think we have a veto-proof majority. So, am I correct in thinking that we would not have enough votes in the legislature to override a veto?
I'm not sure.
Not with Democrats only. I believe the House might have that now, but the Senate does not.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions?
I've got a question for Paul. Could you, so obviously we need more progressive revenue. Can you talk a little bit about why we want to push for a wealth tax specifically versus expanding the capital gains tax or the estate tax or other potential progressive revenue sources we could pursue?
The wealth tax, so something like a capital gains, like the capital gains tax, I think was what, $250,000 in capital gains in a year. The wealth tax is set at a high enough limit that what it does is mildly curb the ability for the ultra rich to amass even more wealth than they have. They still can, because it's not a very high tax. But what we see with the ultra rich is that once they get into this category, the way that our economic system currently works is their wealth just keeps snowballing. So we've seen since 2020, the pandemic started, the wealth of the ultra rich has gone up by about $3 trillion. This is across the US, not just Washington State, of course. Even though at the time, we had Jeff Bezos as a resident here in Washington. And so, this adds to a mixture of the progressive taxation that we have in order to start recapturing, for the good of the public, the wealth that the oligarchs are extracting from the public. The reason why they have this wealth is largely because we have a social, educational, economic context within the United States, within Washington State, where the ultra rich can amass wealth. And this takes a little bit of that back in payment, so to speak, for the ability for the ultra rich to make that wealth.
Awesome. And I just want to note a point of information in the chat that Governor Ferguson said he opposes the wealth tax, but hasn't publicly said he'd veto one if it passed. And then handing it over to Alex for their question.
Hi. So this question, I want to frame it with the right intent, because I do mean this in good faith and kind of more academically. I think a challenge that has that is brought up sometimes around wealth taxes. And the degree to which this is a real concern, I think, is a little bit muddy. There is this sorry, what I'm trying to say is there's this concern that wealth taxes will cause oligarchs to basically move to some jurisdiction where the wealth tax does not apply to them. I think there was some discussion when one of the Nordic countries implemented the wealth tax, the extent to which billionaires did or didn't leave the country. In the context of Washington State, or at least a state within the United States, where movement between states is even easier than across states, does the bill contain provisions to either mitigate these concerns? I'm in support of this either way because I think the attempt at least is still worthy, but kind of from an academic perspective, does the bill contain things to mitigate that particular concern? I don't know if that's too long-winded.
Yeah, it's a good question. I think that has been it's been a concern that, and I'm not, to be clear, I'm not saying you're, raising these current concerns and not in good faith, but it is something that people who oppose a wealth tax in general raise as a way of torpedoing the wealth tax. And again, I'm not saying that it is all at all what your intent was. But there's been some research that's found that people are kind of sticky in their location. Now there's going to be some who move. But, like we saw Bezos, decided that he would rather live in MAGA, Florida, rather than Washington State. And so he picked up and he left. And so some people will pick up and leave, but there is very many people who are their community is here, their business is here, and so they are, they're sticky to the location in which they live, despite the fact that the U.S. has got a relatively mobile society. So there is that. As to whether there's specific things, such as like an exit tax if somebody leaves, things like that, I am not sure if it has anything that would block that.
Yeah, I can answer that one. There's nothing in the resolution that has anything around that. The only kind of way that it tries to get at how wealth is distributed is that it looks at someone's global wealth, and then it has definitions for exactly what that is. So it tries to look at the total assets and wealth that an individual has, not just in the state but globally. But as was noted, like if someone wants to change their residence, then they change their residence, and then if their primary residence isn't here, then this law would no longer apply to them. Okay. Yeah. Any final questions?
Thanks, Paul, and thanks, Ryan, and thanks for taking the question the way it's intended to. I think that's a great point that it's not a uniform population of people this would apply to. Like, I feel like someone like Bill Gates, who has much stronger ties to the region, perhaps, versus someone like Jeff Bezos, who clearly already has left. These are not necessarily the same individuals. I think that's one important point to consider. Thanks a lot.
Awesome. Okay. Not seeing any other questions, we will move to the debate section. Is there anyone who would like to speak in opposition to this resolution? Second call for opposition. Okay, seeing no opposition, I will entertain a motion to vote on this resolution.
So moved.
Okay, and I heard two people, so I'll take the second one as a second. So last vote for the evening. Liam is going to throw the link in the chat. Again, this will work just like the last one. Throw your voting code in there. Again, a yes vote on this ballot would be endorsing this resolution to pass. A no vote would be voting against the resolution, and an abstention is your decision not to weigh in one way or the other. While we're starting to vote on this one, is there anyone who has any, has everyone who wanted to vote on our resolution around the airport master plan had the opportunity to vote? Okay, so we're going to close the vote on our airport master plan resolution, and everyone can continue to vote on our resolution around the wealth tax. And Liam, whenever you have those results ready, feel free.
Yep, I've got results for you.
Oh, excellent.
So, for the one around the CTAC EIS, we have 22 yes votes and 2 no votes, and 1 member abstaining. Therefore, the motion passes.
Okay, so with that, we have passed, be it noted that we passed the resolution around the Sustainable Aviation Plan. We'll keep the link open on this vote for the wealth tax for a few more minutes. While we're doing that, we'll move to our committee chair reports and any intros that didn't happen at our opening. So we'll work our way through. Elisabetta, do you have, would you either like to do an introduction or have anything to report out?
No, not, I don't have anything to report.
Okay, no worries. Jacob, anything from the elections team?
My hair is big today. No, nothing crazy. We're just getting ready for endorsements, but obviously we can't do too much till candidates declare in May. But Ryan and I have started a discussion on if we want to move the meeting from June to May or if June still makes sense. So we'll have news in the future. But other than that, no.
Awesome. Thank you, Jacob. David, for PCOs.
No major updates, but I did want to say that if you were an appointed PCO, your appointment has expired, and it looks like the form that the King County Dems have set up has actually gone live. So if you were an appointed PCO and your appointment expired, I will be sending you an email and prodding you to fill out that form if you would like to continue being a PCO. And yeah, just another plug, if you were not a PCO but would like to be, now would also be a great time to do that.
Excellent. And if you're not sure what a PCO even is, this is a great opportunity to reach out to David and learn a little bit more about these critical pieces to our support structure for engaging with communities around our LD. And we look forward to getting to do a lot of appointments at our March meeting. So this is the perfect time. If you're not quite sure, you haven't done it before, perfect time to connect with David, learn about it, and then we can get you appointed in March. James, anything from the membership team?
No, nothing to report.
Okay, sounds good. Justin.
Yes, I just wanted to let everyone know that they're welcome to join the comms committee. If you have any interest in helping with social media or getting word out on things, that's always welcome. If you have experience in writing press releases and that's your passion, feel free to help me draft those. I will be sending one out tomorrow with the results of the votes tonight. And we will also be sending out an email, as Ryan mentioned earlier, with all of the follow-ups for this meeting. So just keep an eye out for that with a list of resources and action items. And that's it for me.
Thank you, Justin. Over to Derek for fundraising.
I have no updates at this time, but I'm starting to put together the fundraising committee. You know, our fundraisers usually have traditionally been June heavy. And so I don't see that changing with it already being February, but I might put together something soon. So stick around for the March meeting, because you might hear a fun little event I might have. I might throw together here.
Love it. I'm looking forward to it. Arisa, are you? I don't know if Arisa was able to make
Yeah.
it tonight. Oh, yep, Arisa.
Yeah, I think just two things from me. One, I want to thank everybody on this call, including our very own meeting and events chair, Ben Furlow, for the resounding victory that we had on February 11th with the passing of Proposition 1A by extraordinary and badass margins. So round of applause for Ben and the whole House Our Neighbors team for making this happen. We know that this was a people-powered effort that big business really tried to stop. So I just want to thank everyone on this call who voted for that and knocked doors for it, and our board members who worked really hard for it, including you as well, Ryan. And then the second thing is that I will also be putting together my committee in the coming weeks. So if you want to get in touch with me because you're interested in being on the policy and advocacy committee, where we will be engaging 43rd LD members in taking one advocacy action per month, I'll drop my email in the chat and would just love to hear from you, either about joining the committee or any ideas you have for the direction of our work together. Thanks, everyone.
And thank you, Arisa. Mutual aid. So just a heads up for everyone, the board is going to be meeting with a candidate for the mutual aid subcommittee at our e-board meeting in a few weeks. This is an appointed position, but we're going to chat with someone, and then if things go well, hopefully have someone appointed to this position soon. And so that's another subcommittee that we will hopefully have open to people who are interested in helping us connect with mutual aid groups, share opportunities to engage with them, and also distribute some of our budget that is dedicated specifically to mutual aid. So that will be coming soon. Next up is Ben for meeting and events.
Nothing to report with meetings and events, but thank you, Arisa, for that. It's been a wonderful journey over the last year, getting Prop 1A on the ballot and passing it with help from many organizations, including the 43rd. And I did just want to, actually, as an event, this isn't 43rd specifically, but I did just want to mention on that note with Prop 1A that House Our Neighbors is having a volunteer appreciation event on March 4th and talking about what's coming next. So for those who are in here who are interested in housing, justice, and social housing, I would encourage you to check that out. That's on March 4th.
Thank you, Ben. Liam, anything from the tech chair side? I pull you in as you're probably managing the final parts of the vote.
Nothing to report at this time.
Okay, awesome. And then pass it to our King County reps, Charlotte Bryce, Dean, and Jacob.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Happy to report that the the King County Dems Executive Board met on the 28th of January. Not much on the agenda except for approval of minutes and going over a bit of the calendar. The elections ahead, fantastic results. The Conservation District election was uncontested. And went over the legislative appointments and a bit of a point of pride for myself as a daughter of Redmond, having Osman Salahuddin in the 48th district. And then a report by the endorsements committee, which I don't have access to. So if anyone can fill in on the endorsement committee report, that would be fantastic. And I think that is it. This was also prior to the DNC chair elections. And yeah, we'll have our next meeting by the end of the month.
Thank you for the spotlight, but I have nothing to add to that beautiful update.
Good. Okay. And then we'll pass it along to Amy and Daoud, our state reps.
Hi, yes, so I can get started. I didn't get a chance to introduce myself earlier. I know many of you know me. My name is Amy Madden. I'm your state committee representative.
I'm a 30-year organizer for environmental, social, racial justice. I'm a proud member of the queer and disabilities community in Seattle, and I'm a low-income renter like many of you. I'm so proud to get to represent the 43rd for my 5th term. So just going into the report, Daoud and I are going to speak a little bit about the state committee reorganization meeting. We did attend that on January 25th. That included caucus meetings. We elected our state party officers who were running uncontested. We elected Chair Shasti Conrad. For Vice Chair, we have Labor Leader John Thompson, Secretary Diane Young, and Treasurer David Green. Business included one resolution of note that passed. I know this is important to the 43rd, support of the Washington Healthcare Trust. So I know many of you have written to me in support of on that issue. One thing that occurred at the meeting is that we did congressional district elections, who would be electing or who would be representing CD7, CD9, etc. on the state executive committee board. So I served in that role this last term. I decided last summer I needed to step down because for a number of reasons, including my disabilities are in full swing right now. And I can also say that, you know, being in leadership in the party has not always been easy for supporters of Palestine. So I just need to take a little break from that. And I also really love to support the incredible leaders of color. So Lisa Rivera Smith was willing to step forward to serve in that role. And she is a brave, courageous, amazing leader of integrity who I was thrilled to pass the baton on to. I continue to still planning organizing with the disabilities, queer, and other underrepresented communities of CD7. So I also want to mention there's been a number of Democrats 101 trainings that the state party has offered that have been incredibly helpful to a lot of us. And I'm going to segue on to Daoud so he can speak a little bit about that and about his experience with the state committee reorganization meeting. Take it away.
Thank you. Thanks, Amy. I don't have a ton to add, but you know, because it's still kind of early, I think. But I just want to be accountable to you, and so yeah, I'm doing a lot of the Dem trainings, like the Democrat University stuff. There's videos and things like that. The SEC meeting where we got to see I got to see some of the caucuses. I went to the Native American caucus. I went to the Stonewall caucus. I went to the inaugural meeting of the Muslim caucus, and they elected like their initial. Not the whole board, but a lot of them. And that's the first time they ever did it. The first time they ever met. Let's see what else. I was assigned to the advocacy committee, and I believe next Thursday or March 6th will be the first day that I actually go down to Olympia as a member of that committee. And I'll make sure I take notes and report back to you all. And then Amy and I are going to be going to the King County Dems meeting on Tuesday, February 25th. And I can't. What are my notes? Yeah, I will be filling you in on that too when we go to that. I think that's basically all we got.
Awesome. Thank you, Amy and Daoud. And thank you to all of our chairs for their again for joining the board, for bringing your skills and your talents and your passion to this organization. And so excited to work with you all, build out our plan, and bring it back to everyone. Okay, we've got a few minutes left. We're almost right on time. Open it up real quick. If there's any good of the order, for people who might not know, this is just announcements that are relevant to everyone. This can always be a space if you have a particular action in the community that you would like to just let everyone be aware of, can be a great space for that. So Charlotte, Paul, and then Jacob.
Thank you, Matt. Mr. Chair, damn, not the misgendering. Ryan, do you have a secret you'd like to share with the class? Sorry. Anyway, I have been following the county council agendas very closely recently, and I've been speaking with David and Ryan about this, but there is some readjustment of precincts happening on the county level. And there are a couple of affected precincts in the 43rd. If you are a PCO I think the one that I saw specifically was in like it was in First Hill, like right on the boundary between First Hill and downtown. So if you're PCO in a precinct that's around there, you should. Well, I think you should. I help.
Yeah, we'll have, if you're in an affected precinct, David will reach out to you. He'll let you know what's going on and any impact that it might potentially have.
I apologize for tripping over my words. I'll be quiet now.
No worries.
Yeah.
It's almost 9 o'clock, Charlotte. My brain is also mush. And then real quick, I need to make sure that I do this before we end the meeting. Is there anyone who hasn't had a chance to finish their vote for our last resolution? Okay, I'm going to close the vote on that. We'll get through our good of the order, hear our results, and then close the meeting. So passing it to, we've got Paul, Jacob, Derek, then we'll do election results, and then we'll close out.
Go to Jacob.
Okay, Jacob.
Fair enough. So yeah, I just wanted to raise that on Monday, on President's Day, there was a big protest, several of them all across the country. I know this is not the best time for everybody, so it was good seeing people getting out there. And that was the second of 2 protests actually organized by, oddly enough, subreddit, which I don't think I've ever actually seen a subreddit do effective activism before. But it was just really nice to see that left-leaning people are making use of what options we have to get protests and get visibility. I don't know if there's going to be any more. The subreddit was 50501, 50 states, 50 for like 50 states, 1 day of protest or something, but they've since expanded, and it's one of the few bright spots in this month that we're seeing some real grassroots movements. I yield.
Awesome. Thank you for highlighting those local actions that are taking place, Jacob. Derek.
Hi, I wanted to mention, I know we were supposed to have some folks from the IDF program speak tonight, but they weren't able to make it. But I am a IDF alum myself, class of 2020. And unfortunately, before our next meeting, so they won't have a chance to talk about their fundraiser coming up on Thursday, March 13th at 6:30 p.m. There's a trivia at Ozzy's, which is very close to the Climate Pledge Arena in Lower Queen Anne or Uptown, whatever words you choose to describe that area of Seattle. And I would love to be able to include a link, because I'm sure that's what they were going to talk about tonight, was their fundraiser for their big trip to DC. And so that fundraiser is happening before our next meeting. I would really appreciate if we could put the link to the Facebook page about that IDF trivia night. It's really fun. Last year I played piano and did the trivia. I think this year I get to just be someone who partakes in the trivia. And it's I encourage everybody to come who likes political trivia and having a good time.
Awesome. Thank you, Derek. And yeah, and we'll include that in our follow-up email tomorrow, so everyone who's interested can go attend that fundraiser. Andrew.
Hi, everyone. Congress to the new board. Coming from the King County Dems, I'm the Vice Chair of Outreach for those that don't know. But we are having a very important meeting next week where Congressman Adam Smith will be attending. And I really want to encourage everyone to please, if you're not allowed to sign up to attend as a guest, it will be streamed on our YouTube page. And please, all tea, all shade, all offense, bombard your reps, your KCD reps, your alternates, your chair, to ensure that your voice is heard, because there will be a motion to censure Adam Smith because of, I'm from the South and I'm Nigerian. So bless his heart, all the things that he's said that are really disappointing. So please reach out to your reps and tell them how you feel so that your vote is heard during the KCDMs. And if you can attend it, please be there. there's power in numbers and there's power in our voice, and most especially in our votes. Thank you, everyone.
Awesome. Thank you, Andrew. Bryce.
Sorry, I know it's late, super quick. Sound Transit is getting a new CEO, and there's a big push from some activist agencies to ensure that the agency is set up to have actual writers be in charge of at least part of the rollout of Sound Transit. If you're interested in talking about the Sound Transit CEO or having a different type of incentive structure for Sound Transit to more quickly and more effectively build out high quality transit, instead of getting bogged down in constant draft amendment changes, as the mayor and King County executive have been trying to move a voter approved station around, please contact me and I'll be happy to get you into the right contact with people.
Awesome. Thank you, Bryce. Okay. And then finally, announcing our results on the wealth tax resolution with 22 yeses and 2 noes. The 43rd passes the resolution calling on Governor Ferguson to support a wealth tax. And with that, we will adjourn our meeting. Thank you, everyone, for showing up. Thanks for sticking around and participating. As always, if you have any ideas, questions, thoughts, please feel free to share them and have a wonderful rest of your evening.